Thank you, Mr. Williams. I recognize the honorable members of Cabinet, the Chief Medical Officer and personnel from the Health Department, Mr. Samuel, the Chairman of the Task Force and NDC for NEMA, and all other members of the staff at NEMA, and specially invited guests. This afternoon, I want to add another dimension to the work of the police, to report on another dimension of the work of the police. But before I do that, I would want to report on, or rather, I would want to share my own appreciation to the work of the Health Department, the Chief Medical Officer and her team. This is a pandemic and health is leading, but I want to place on record the national security agencies that are actively involved assisting the Health Department and health workers. The NEMA, of course. We also have the police, the Defense Force and Coast Guard, Fire and Rescue Services, the Immigration Department, and although Customs is not necessarily under national security, is regarded as one of the security agencies, and I would want to recognize the work of the Controller of Customs and other customs officers. When schools were shut down on the 25th of March, the community policing team led by Inspector Rosemary as Joseph immediately went out into the community to ensure that children out of school did not congregate in any groups, and recognize the importance of social distancing and physical distancing. Shortly after that, however, we had a state of emergency established and shut down, and the community policing team was otherwise engaged with other police activities and was unable to follow through as we would have liked with respect to enforcing children to follow the guidelines which were established by the Health Department. But with the extension of the state of emergency and more partial curfew days being provided, it has now become very imperative for the community policing team to get back into the community, which they have done so. And it's difficult for adults to stay locked down for periods of time, but children, of course, is going to be more difficult. And the least chance some of them get, they're going to be out there by their friends and so on. And so I want to first of all report that the community policing team has again become active out in the community, working with children, enforcing the social distancing, physical distancing, and encouraging them to stay home. The Ministry of Education has provided virtual learning materials, and the ideal situation is for parents to ensure that their children stay home. But as more parents go out to work, as during partial curfew days and so on, the children are going to venture out. That's the reality. And therefore, the community policing team, as other police generally, but in particular, will be traversing the island, ensuring that the children do not congregate and they stay home. I want to say that the Ministry of National Security has, over the last few years, established 12 Explorers Clubs. We have about 1,000 children out there active. And some parents approach the leadership of the community policing team requesting masks for some of the children in the Explorers Clubs. The Ministry of National Security therefore engaged Sun Island Clothes to provide 1,000 masks for Explorers children who don't have masks, and the community policing team will be charged with distributing those masks. And therefore, I want to place on record or for the record, the government's input into this venture. 1,000 masks, which we are getting from Sun Island Close to distribute to children who do not have masks, so that even though we do not want them to venture out, if they do venture out, we ensure that they are secured. Let me say that although children may not become themselves affected by COVID-19, the fact that they're out there and that they go back into their homes with other people in their home, elderly people and so on, they carry it back to them. So the more we make sure that the children stay home and off the streets, the safer it is for everybody in that household. Finally, I want to say that crime has taken a back seat, I hope, with COVID-19. We have not heard much about crime, but it does not mean that certain crimes are not taking place. The police can talk about reports of domestic violence. I have heard reports about break-ins, which it is suspected that some of them may be caused by children, juveniles. And so this is another reason why the community policing team has to be active in the communities. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock here at NEMA, I have therefore arranged for the Chief Medical Officer, she has agreed, and Mr. Samuel and whoever else they bring along, to meet with the community policing team to discuss procedural issues relating to their interaction with children and families and so on in the community, and safeguards which they should follow. So tomorrow at 2 o'clock here at NEMA, the entire community policing team will meet with health personnel and members of the task force to discuss as they go forward. Once again, I want to congratulate all who have worked hard to encourage the frontline workers, police, health, police, and all members of the task force. I understand that recently we've had a new task force led by Ms. Hughes and so on, which has started to work to enforce certain guidelines. And so I would want to encourage everybody to continue to work hard as we try to overcome the challenge which is posed by COVID-19. Thank you very much.